So about SEO, we talked about it last week, and in the meantime, been offered that we integrate the module made by his company, Buzz Interactive, into the source code. And I made the module last week during the triage.
How much did we have to pay for that? You paid for it, right, Antoine? That's what
so, features. There is a new SEO features. If you enable it, you are able to use an SEO meta part. For example, on the content type article, I can add an SEO meta part. And then when I edit an article, there is a specific SEO tab.
Are there any options in the meta part?
Not yet. No. Okay. But we will talk about it after, because Seth made a few suggestions to improve it, to take some features from the module, the PR he tried to make a few months ago. But right now there is no settings, and there are those collapsible panels.
Can you show what it contains?
Yeah. So there is the main one about the content. So you will find a way to override the page title, to provide a description, some keywords, a new canonical URL, and specify the robots meta.
I have so many questions. Sorry. Mm-hmm. If I set a canonical URL, does it replace the auto route one, or it's just a metadata? No. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's just setting the canonical URL for the page so that the crawlers know what is the actual URL for this content item.
Yeah.
And does it handle redirections like?
Not this module. No. And you can also add your custom meta tags to edit it in JSON, or to specify it. It's easier to specify which content. I don't have any meta in mind, but if you want to add a specific metadata, most of the time you will have the name and the content. Yeah.
So meta keywords, okay. Meta keywords, comma separated. Comma separated because this is what the meta keywords accepts. So there is no transformations on the value. It's just taking that and putting it in the HTML.
Mm-hmm.
Meta descriptor. Why is it a code descriptor or whatever mono font for meta description? That's weird.
Because it can be a bit longer than keywords if you want to add more than, for example, this.
It's multi-line, but yeah. Well, it's still weird to have this kind of editor. We can support multi-line for text area.
It's a code mirror. It's a code mirror text area.
Yeah, that's okay. Mm-hmm. It looks like it's special.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not. Okay.
So that was.
Does it support liquid as well? Is it titled or
not yet? I don't think so.
Well, should it support liquid or should it support shortcodes?
I guess.
If you're still using my implementation, Antoine, it probably supports liquid everywhere.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Should it support Liquid or should it support shortcodes?
Probably shortcodes because it's about editors.
Yep. And unless you can't break, unless it's sanitized, but it's yeah, that should be shortcodes. It's too risky otherwise.
So about the social panel, you are able to.
But why would you inject shortcodes in these things? Maybe you want just the content item data, and then shortcodes won't provide that. So maybe it should not accept Liquid unless it's in the part settings. Like you could say the meta description will take the field, whatever. Yeah, we have to think about it. That's, yeah, that or we need to sanitize it. And then there is no issue. Okay, sorry.
If you sanitize it, you can still inject other stuff in there, which would then move to the layout. Like you still use the liquid zone helper.
Okay.
Anyway.
So you are able in the social panel to define which image you want to use. So for example, for the Open Graph specification or for the Twitter image. So Open Graph it's what it's used mostly by Facebook. You can define which type of content you are editing, you are displaying, what title will appear, and which description. And about Twitter, it's almost the same. You are able to specify the title, the description, which kind of card will be displayed.
Why aren't the images in the sections for their thing, like the Open Graph image in the Open Graph section, the Twitter image in the Twitter section?
Yeah, I don't know why they are separate.
They could then. It will answer.
I will show you how it looks like in the source. And lastly, you are able to define a Google schema. So this is using the JSON plus LD, JSON for linked data specification. So you can define this kind of data and schema in your page.
So it's injected in the page?
Yeah, I will show you.
Never saw that.
So for example, this article, if I display the source of the page, you can see the description keywords, the custom meta, the Open Graph parameters, the image. So you have the Open Graph image here. So yeah, I guess if it's not defined, it will use the default image as the OG image. Okay, so by default, it's using the culture to define the OJ:local property. You can see the second image. So we just defined the default one, but it's used in OG or in Twitter. The canonical URL by default is using the author-out URL. And here you can see the Google schema. So with this kind of type, and it's just rendered as is. And title is not overridden because I did not save. If I save and publish, you can see the title overridden, and you can see that it's interpreting the liquid. SAS is the name of my website. So when I used edit SEO, when I used curly braces site name, it's been rendering SAS, the name of the site.
But it won't anymore very soon.
And so Seth made a few suggestions about keywords because it's not really used anymore in SEO by websites, by crawlers, robots. About description, you would like a text area instead of the input.
And about keywords, I don't agree because, yeah, maybe crawlers don't care, but if customers care, if users care, then they will want the keywords. They will be like, I don't care if you don't care. I want
better it. Add more things that less.
Or maybe in the settings you can say if you want to see them or not.
Yeah.
What are they?
So Twitter card could be a drop down. Okay. Yeah, you don't, if you don't use Twitter tags and use you should better use Open Graph. If you use one of them, use Open Graph. And by default, Twitter will use those meta properties. So in SPR, Seth was trying to add some counters to tell you don't have to make description too long, for example. So it was becoming red if it was above a certain length, a max length. And he said that there was some kind of the same custom meta that he could add, and in SPR you were able to define them in the part settings. So that's what he would like to have as a feature, to be able to define the meta tags, some of the meta tags in the part editor.
It's great. Thank you, Antoine. We won't thank Dean because he didn't say anything.
Yeah, I know nothing.
Yeah, the good comments from Seth also just agrees. Yeah, I think we need settings in the part to define what to show. And so I would suggest to have the liquid support in the part settings, because that's where it should be. Like if you want the meta descriptions to have something, then you can say, okay, put that in liquid or hard-coded in the settings that can be reused. And we also need settings because I assume some of these values might be the same for all the articles or for all the whatever blog post. So we need to have part settings, including these custom meta tags, including everything. No? Yeah.
And,
did you include the custom settings, Antoine?
Excuse me, what?
Did you include the custom settings where you could set defaults for the images?
No, not yet.
Okay.
So there are some custom settings.
Yeah, and Dean told me that maybe instead of one big SEO part, maybe we could split it, and for example, each one of the panel would be coming from a part.
Maybe if there are settings where you can say I don't want to see that or I want to see that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
okay.
Maybe it will be
It's-
easier.
Unless like I don't know. The only reason will be that we decide to not support or not make any progress on Twitter anymore because Twitter is dead. And then we don't want to see it anymore, even in the settings. That might be why we want to see it apart. I'm like,
yeah.
It doesn't hurt to have different parts, but it might be hard. If you imagine that if you care about Twitter SEO, maybe you also care about Google and all the rest. So you would have to add 4 parts every time. So I don't know, but is it common to just have Twitter or just Google and not Google, Twitter, Facebook, OG? I don't know.
The reason it was originally done like that is just because it's to provide everything, because an SEO guy that's working on a website never complains that he has too many settings. He always complains that he doesn't have enough.
Yeah. And I said, if there is a setting to hide it, so that's, yeah, so let's keep it all together instead of splitting, because it will be much work for configuring otherwise. And in next version, when Twitter is dead, we can decide to move it, or Google, maybe Google will die. Okay, and maybe more will appear. But then at some point, we can just add new parts for the newcomers before we decide to integrate them by default.
You are now able to check some editor settings on the SEO meta part to say if you want to display the keywords or the custom meta tags in the content panel, or to say if you want to display the Open Graph panel, the Twitter panel, or the Google Schema panel. So by default, they are all visible when they are checked. You can see all those ones. Jasmin made a small change for the accordion to display the cards. And if I save and refresh my page in Edit, SEO tab, you will only see the content and the panel about the pictures, and you can not see the keywords and the custom meta tags. And if I check them again, refresh, and I can see the meta keywords and the custom meta tags. Instead of using Liquid, we are now using shortcodes, and I added this modal button in every input needing to in which you can use a shortcode.
Did you ask him?
Yeah.
Did you ask? Did he ask? Or is he lying?
Well, no, I told him he needed to.
Why the padding is wrong? The padding should be padded a little bit more down, because it's I assume it should be the same space on the right and the top of this icon. You know what I mean? Little details.
You can blame me for that one.
It's almost better now. So what did you do then? Why did you break it?
You can see the top -5 pixels.
You knew about that.
But I like my 5 pixels.
Why? So I vote for this way. Who votes for the other way?
Yeah, I prefer without those two margins and the top.
I don't even know where those two came from.
Okay.
That's probably because it's not working. It's not displaying the same in Firefox. So yeah. These are
So we need to
patches.
test cross-browser first before seeing anything. We need to check. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's also broken when you go down. You saw the image there. It's missing some meat. Yeah. Okay. Darling. See,
Mhm.
overflowing. We need some. There's a bug here.
Yeah.
Bugs everywhere. Okay. Good.
So that's it for the SEO module. And today I started. So you can see that if you are using display text, the display text shortcode, it will use the title. The title in the description, it will use the title of the current content.